and not violence against protesting.
We put something in Farsi in our language. So we just said freedom for everyone, freedom for humanity, and we are all together, and we won't forget you.
Right there, a mural honoring George Floyd in downtown Portland that continues to grow, a symbol for a city demanding change. Welcome to The Good Stuff. I'm Ashley Korsland. Boy, what a week it's been. Protests in the middle of a pandemic, but still we find plenty of good. And it begins with that art replacing the work of vandals. Our Devin Haskins explains.
During Friday night's riot, looters smashed the front windows and broke into multiple stores. Today, broken windows have been replaced with plywood, some painted in black.
And I'd walk by the Apple building and it was all painted black and it felt like they'd made a canvas for me.
Emma Berger says that was on Monday. She went home, grabbed what she could, ran back to the Apple store and started painting.
Everyone's good at something different and I can paint. And I can paint really, really big things.
With no plan in place, she began on the face of George Floyd and added the words he said with a knee pressed into his neck: "I can't breathe."
It's such an important cause, and everyone has to protest in the best way they can.
The impromptu mural stands out as a focal point in a quiet downtown.
And I just think it's beautiful, you know, just being able to express oneself through art and being able to have a place where people can come express their feelings.
It's a place to reflect on how we as America got to this point, a place to pay respects to those that have lost their lives. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and many more.
It's not an isolated incident. There's a lot of faces to be remembered, and this seems to be a good place to remember them right now.
They are just a few of the faces and names that millions around the world are protesting for.
People are finally getting a loud enough voice to probably be able to stop it and to make some change, and everyone needs to help in whatever way they can.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice.
Well, dozens of public defenders gathered in Lonsdale Square today protesting what one lawyer called the injustice system. The lawyers say the ongoing protests are confronting issues of institutional racism they say they see in their workplace every day. Similar protests were held in other cities around the country today. And we know challenging times can often lead to good conversation. And so we want to highlight people devoted to continuing the important dialogue about race. Tonight, our Kristen Severance talks with educator Nicole Watson.
So let's just start with your thoughts on everything that's happened in across the country over the last week and with the demonstrations here in Portland.
What I think we saw with George Floyd was a straw that we so eloquently always say breaks the camel's back. It was the last gulp of air that I think people could take. For me, you know, trying to process all of that as an adult is one thing, and then having to explain it to my 16-year-old goddaughter was a completely different experience. I was not prepared for her reaction. I was not prepared for the questions that she would have. And I felt responsible, and it felt hard having to explain the state of the world that I left for her, that she's having to grapple with. And I think it just felt like I can't breathe. And I think we use that term to articulate how George Floyd felt in that moment, but also how we feel in these moments. And it oftentimes feels like we can't breathe. And when you can't catch your breath, it makes you respond in a way. And what we're seeing is how folks are responding. Some folks are protesting and some folks are organizing, and how we're choosing to respond is indicative of our positionality and the context that what it means to not have breath, what it means to not be able to take that breath. In spite of the good person that you might be and the education that you might have and the accolades that you might deserve, to know that this could be your end, to know that this could be your reality or the reality of your children, enough is enough.
What did you say to your 16-year-old goddaughter, and what do you suggest as an educator, what do you suggest parents, how do they bring this up with kids?
that was just a normal part of growing up. We had to have the talk of what happens when you're pulled over by a police officer, what happens when the officer approaches your vehicle, where do you keep your hands, where do you keep your identification and your right to be on the road. And that has just become a bedrock of what it means to be Black in America. You got to have the talk with your children. And what we are realizing as educators now, and just as humans in this work, is we now all have to be having a version of the talk with our children, because what we know is that racism and bigotry and prejudice is not something we're born with. It's something that we are taught, and it's cultivated within our culture. And it means that the onus and the responsibility is not just on people of color and not just on Black folks, but it is also incumbent upon our allies to become accomplices in this work. And accomplices are having the talk. And that may be difficult. It means that we are identifying our privilege, and it means we are identifying the areas in which there are moments that we just don't have to be concerned. That's a privilege. It's incumbent upon us to recognize our positionality. And what I need to do as an accomplice is put my body in this space to liberate or to fight for the liberation of others, because their liberation is inextricably linked to mine. And so when my white colleagues and white friends and white allies are asking, Nicole, what can I do? You start at home, because revolutions begin in our homes. And it starts with the conversation. It starts with that uncomfortable conversation with our children about the state of where our world is, the state of where our world should be, but it's not there. And here is how we move to that in that consciousness. We've got to be having conversations with our children about race.
She's so great to listen to. Nicole works as a teacher at Rosa Parks. She also does coaching and holds workshops for other teachers. Well, we have more good ahead tonight. How about, this is an odd one, a pig rescue in the middle of a protest. Hear from the woman who pulled an all-nighter to make sure Betty stayed safe.
Frank's over here steaming up and cooking some veggies and some chicken for today. Look at this. Oh my goodness.
We're going all the way down to Salishan, Culver City, all the way up to Nespin.
I was supposed to open April 1st and have a grand opening April 15th. So I decided to go ahead and just launch and do to-go. And it's been going crazy ever since. So from day one, I have a sea salt caramel roll and I sell probably a couple dozen every day. It's just a really great town with some really supportive people in it.
And all that food looks amazing, doesn't it? Well, there's some good news for restaurants serving free meals during the pandemic. 10 of them in Oregon got a total of more than $40,000, which is incredible. So that award came from the Oregon Hospitality Foundation. The restaurants include Botanist House in Portland, Harbor Light Restaurant in Reedsport, and Restaurant O in Coos Bay. The money raised with a movie and takeout event will help them continue offering free meals. That is wonderful. A Portland nonprofit is stepping up to help the Black community, which has been hugely impacted by COVID-19. This weekend, Self Enhancement Inc. provided free coronavirus testing for African Americans. The organization's president says they had to put some pressure on state and local leaders, though, in order to make those testings happen. That is a great thing happening there. And students looking to do a good deed during the pandemic have a new resource now. 2 students at St. Mary's Academy created Portland Student Pandemic Response. So the website connects teens with organizations in need of help. There are all kinds of options like mask making or reading a story for kids of healthcare workers.
We can actually make a difference by going and working with these organizations, and please join. The more help, the better we can make this situation.
Now, the website also helps students write and send encouraging notes. A student sent this card to Transition Projects, for example, a nonprofit helping Portland's homeless.
It's pretty amazing. We've definitely had a lot of folks reaching out to see how they can help, but it's pretty awe-inspiring when you get, two teenagers who not only want to help themselves, but want to find a way to mobilize thousands of students to help.
Well, any high school student in Portland can get involved in this. You can just go to pspandemicresponse.com and you can find everything you need to know to get started. Well, the drive-through graduation has become just a common way to celebrate the class of 2020, as we have seen time and time again. Oregon City High School held one on Sunday. The seniors rolled up in decorated cars. Each was able to get out and have their name called as they walked across the stage.
It's not the graduation they envisioned, but the school and the community has pulled together, and we will send them off in proper fashion, even if it wasn't what they imagined it would be.
Hey, it's still something, and you know those students really appreciated that moment right there. Well, a big congratulations, we just want to say, to the 400 seniors from Oregon City High School. That's great. And coming up tonight, a pig in a blanket, literally, on the East Bank Esplanade.
You should have heard the screaming. She complained so mightily.
Aw. How Betty brought police and protesters together when we come back on The Good Stuff. Well, a pig protected by protesters and police. Boy, this has to be one of the more unusual stories of the week, maybe of the year. As John Goodwin explains, the rescue took some good teamwork.
Saturday night's demonstration in Portland led to an interesting find on the East Bank.
I got a little message on Facebook that simply said, "Are you up?" And I had a feeling something was up.
Mary McDonald Lewis quickly knew she needed to hoof it to downtown. She's been involved in animal rights and rescues for many years, but this was probably her most unique experience.
So I pulled up, and it was completely dark down here.
By then, it was Sunday, about 1 in the morning.
It was huge.
Abandoned on the Esplanade was a 300-pound pig. Mary says that pigs have been used to make statements about police brutality at protests across the country. But she points out in this case, it was demonstrators that were protecting the animal from harm.
They had taken off all of their jackets and had found a blanket to make Miss Betty Pig, as we named her, comfortable and to keep her warm and calm.
As late as it was, Mary and her friend Sue, who had met her there, realized they were going to have to spend the night to protect the pig and eventually corral her.
And so I realized that if we pulled our cars in super tight, we could create a kind of a pigsty. And that's exactly what we did.
Passing officers noticed the situation.
And they came over and they looked over the wall and they discovered a pig in a blanket.
After a few tries, they got Betty into a police van.
You should have heard the screaming. She complained so mightily.
She was taken to an animal sanctuary, thanks to Mary and Sue, and to the police who got her there, but also the demonstrators who rescued her.
She was no longer in police custody, and now she's just some pig.
In Portland, John Goodwin, KGW News.
Okay, that is quite the story right there. I loved it, though. Well, here's another good deed done with animals in mind. A Riverdale High School student collected dog food to donate to others. Olivia and her friend Ashley gave it to pet owners at Blanchet House. If you're not familiar with it, the Portland nonprofit offers meals and shelter. It does a really important job in our community. And we just want to thank Julie Showers, by the way, for letting us know about that story. Well, a house project turns into a good moment for a Portland family. They asked people online to help them decide what color to paint their house, and more than 100,000 people responded. We have an update on their poll when we come back. And welcome back. We want to do a little sports story here. We want to tell you about a really standout athlete. There hasn't been anyone in the state faster than Benson High School's Makai Williams. He holds Oregon State's record in the 100-meter and 200-meter dash. Well, he missed out on the chance to crush his own records this year, unfortunately, because of the coronavirus pandemic. But this will not be the last time he runs in Oregon. Makai will get to compete at the University of Oregon, committing to run with the Ducks. How great is that? He had offers to go to some of the best programs in the country, but he wanted to stay close to home and be near family. Makai is fired up for the chance to compete at the new Hayward Field in Eugene.
You see in the stadium and where I'm gonna be running and talking to the coaches, it helps me stay more motivated because I know what's coming up next. It's like I might not have a meet, but I know I have the stadium. I'm gonna be training in the stadium. I'm gonna be training with training partners at Oregon. Because all the people that we have tremendous people, tremendous talent. Basically, that's what I'm looking forward to.
So incredible. By the way, he's been training at home. He also has a 4.0 GPA. So good luck to him. We can't wait to watch him when he's with the Ducks. Okay, we want to close out the good stuff now with a Portland family's painting project that became a viral sensation. You may have heard of this family. This is doing a lot of good too. The Landreth family put these color choices on their house along with the QR code so that neighbors could vote, right? Well, Brian worked with his daughter Grace to turn it into a creative lesson about surveys. Well, their tweet though made the project go viral. More than 150,000 votes came in from all over the world, and the winning color is a bright blue.
And you're happy with the choice?
Yeah. It looks really bright, but I think, you know, on a nice gloomy day, it's a beautiful color. You know, there's probably 80,000 people as their first choice or so numbers don't lie.
Okay, well, the project has a lasting impact, too, on more than just the house. When Miller Paint offered to give them supplies, the family suggested that they donate to Grace's school, which is Harriet Tubman. And when a company offered to do the painting, the family donated a portion of what they would have spent on the labor for the painting to the school, which is really incredible. Well, thanks for joining us, and keep sharing the good stuff with us. You can text your pictures and stories to 503-226-5088. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. Have a wonderful night.